Hi everyone. I've been wanting to do this for a while, ever since my son passed away, but I didn't have the strength to come live. The reason that I wanted to is because I know that a lot of people are aware that my son passed away. Um, But I don't think that many of you really know the story of what happened. And I wanted to share what happened because I want to bring awareness to a lot of things that I wanted to address. Um, I really truly understand that God has a time whenever we are to be born, and whenever we are called back home. He knows everything, He knows our future, but still, even at that, um, um, I'm sorry, it's hard. My eldest son, he was suffering from depression, and due to the depression, he was having psychosis, substance abuse issues, and it was a very bad mixture, substance abuse with mental illness. He was suffering because he never accepted the fact that he lost his family, and it was pretty hard on him. I took care of him for almost 5 years after him leaving, on his own, and being a grown up, young man that was being a father and working and providing before addiction got a hold of him. And when it did, it really destroyed him. And it didn't just destroy him, it destroyed me. But I don't mean like totally destroyed, because I always have faith in God. But what I'm trying to say is that my heart was broken. Yeah, it was really broken. But I was so happy. I was so happy when my son was able to join a 6 months program where his substance abuse and his mental illness were gonna be addressed. And I thought that somehow, whenever my son would finish that program, I would have at least a sober son. But he wasn't allowed to have visits. Personally, I was not able to visit him, but I was able to have calls on the weekends. And so me and my daughter, we had calls with him every weekend. And he did tell us in one occasion that the doctors had upped his medication and that he was not feeling well. From that time, we started to notice his mind was getting worse. The medication that they were giving him was making him suffer more psychosis, and he started talking crazy stuff. But we still kept talking to him because we wanted to you know talk to him and see how he was doing. I was really feeling powerless as what we could do because he was in that program. The day that I picked up my son from that 6 months program, I didn't get to enjoy my son, because as soon as he came home, I was tired, and I told him I was going to lay down for maybe a couple of hours, and then I would take him to see his siblings because we had not seen him for 6 months. But I woke up to my son telling me that, um, he was sweating, and I went to check up on him, and he was gurgling, like rattle sounds. Those are signs of poison and of life. By the way, I've worked in hospice care for years. I've taken care of people that are on their end time, and I do know when people are on their on their last moments of life. I knew that my son was dying. His lips were purple, his skin was gray, the pillow where he was laying was full of blood. I immediately told my son to call my daughter, who lives next door and is a nurse and works in the trauma unit. Um, and she hurried up and came, and she checked his vital signs, and his oxygen was 20%. We knew we were losing him. Of course, I called 911. About time the paramedics made it home to check up on him. They performed CPR and administered Narcan on him. They proceeded to put him on the ambulance and transported him to a hospital here in Houston, southwest side, West Houston hospital. We didn't want him there because he's been there many times in the past, and even though it was court order for him to stay there um, to be checked and make sure that first that he was okay, and being seen by a doctor, stabilized with medication and mentally before being released. They always let him walk out. He would make his way back home because the hospital's so close to us, like about 7 minutes. He would come home with his EKG stickers and his IV. So I knew that that was not the hospital that he should have gone to. But my mistake was that I should have gone in the ambulance, and I regret that so much. I regret it so much because I wanted to get a coat and I wanted to get my binder, and I thought, this is gonna be one of those nights where I'm gonna spend the night with my son and watch him being saved. But that was not the case this time. About time I made it to the ER, which wasn't too far from the time that the ambulance took him there, I was told that my son was not there in the hospital. Of course, I asked why my son was ambulance took him there. I was told that my son was not there in the hospital. Of course, I asked why my son was not in the hospital. Hospital. Of course, I asked why my son was not in the hospital. Told that my son refused medical attention, even though I had told the paramedics that my son was suffering psychosis and that he was overdosed and dying. They still chose to let him go. And when my son left the hospital, of course, as a mother, I went to the hospital, yelled, and said, "Well, how could y'all let him go? My son was dying." And they said that they couldn't force him to get help if he didn't want it. Mind you, his oxygen was only 20% before he left, and gurgling and blood and purple lips and gray skin. I found him on the street, just very close to the hospital. I asked him to get in the car. He got in the car. I came home. And when I came home, he laid down, and he laid down in my bed next to me because I asked him to, because I was going to monitor, him. And he immediately closed his eyes, and he started to gurgle again. Of course, I got up and I checked on him. And I call 911 again. And this is like in all 2 hour period from the first call. I call 911 and they told me that, ma'am, you need to go ahead and perform CPR on him. And they stayed on the phone with me, you know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I was doing that. But unfortunately, my son stopped breathing. And I checked for his pulse and he had no pulse. My son was dead. That last call I made to the ambulance, I mean, not the last call, but the second call I made after I brought him home was somewhere around 12 o'clock in the morning, midnight, I'm sorry. And then the second call was 2:21. My son was already dead. Paramedics don't get here that fast. So I guess they must have gotten here maybe like about 10, 15 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. I don't know. I went into a panic attack. All I can say is that about time they came here, my son was dead, lifeless. And now they want to say that they did try to save him. They did drag him from my bed and took him, rushed him to the ER. But by that time, my son was dead. And, you know, when we got to the hospital and they, the nurse or doctor or whatever asked, has this patient been here? And I immediately said, yes, he was here just like an hour ago. But you guys let him go home. He's dead now. My son is dead. And they told me, that's all we need from you, ma'am. Like, step out. And I I think that just because he said that he didn't need help or whatever, I wasn't there to hear that. That should not have been a reason for an ER and nursing staff to determine that that was okay, being that I made sure that they were aware that he had a mental issue and he was having psychosis. And by the way, he's been in the hospital at least 20 times in the psych unit. So this is totally negligence, cruelty. And I was left, to do the best that I could, but yet not enough. And it's something that I will never forget. My son's death was not just a normal death. I was crying out for help. I was calling 911. I even drove to the police station. I was told that, what do you want us to do about it? I had to watch my son died. And I knew from the first time that I called the ambulance that my son was dying. How can you, as a nurse or as a doctor, work in a hospital and hear a mother saying that her son overdosed and present evidence, diagnosis, that he's mentally ill and doesn't know what he's doing or saying, and say that they can force or kidnap a patient? He wasn't alone. I was with him. He wasn't just a druggie that was found in the street and was brought in by the ambulance. No. I was behind him all the time. And what I want to say to bring awareness is about the use of Narcan. Narcan is it's a little spray that you spray on someone that has overdose. But just because the person wakes up after the dose does not mean that they're okay. It's just like a spare tire. When you get a flat tire, you put a spare tire. It just gives you enough time to get them rush them to the hospital. They still have to be monitored. They still have to be accessed. They still have to make sure that their lungs and their heart and, everything is okay, that they're safe, that they're going to make it. Um, I'm so broken by this, and I'm not blaming anybody. Nobody told my son to do that. But at the same time, people suffer from mental illness. And I wish I could still have my son here. Even if he was going through whatever he was going through, he was still my son. I would have still been taking care of him. I would have still been praying for him. I would have still been taking him to his follow-up appointments, as any mother would have. So, for any mother out there that does have the opportunity to see their loved one or anybody that's overdosed, don't think that applying a Narcan is enough. You apply Narcan, and sometimes it requires more than one. It can require 1, 2, 3, 4. But it also requires medical attention. Sometimes they might have to put some carbon and, clean them up so it can absorb the poison. Sometimes they might need oxygen. And sometimes they might need the doctors to intervene with their lungs, their breathing. It was not okay because he wasn't alone. He had a mother that was yelling and crying. I was crying. I was telling them, he's dying. And they let him die. But I try to hold, peace and I try to have peace in my heart. But it's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. It's very hard. But I'm making this video because I want to share it with all those mothers out there. And maybe I don't have anybody in my group that is going through that. And praise God. But I do want to share this video with all the groups of mothers who have children or loved ones that are dealing with mental illness and substance abuse. And I also had a whole bunch of letters that my son was writing while he was in that place. And they're very heartbreaking to read. He was being overdosed. And I know because we were talking to him on the weekends, and we noticed the difference. In the beginning, he sounded like sober. He sounded like himself before I noticed that he had a mental illness, because he wasn't always like that. He lost his mind when he lost his family. But after he told us that they had upped his medications, is when we started noticing that he was losing his mind and he was talking all this crazy stuff. Things that were weird. Thinking that he had to kill himself, or that God, had sent him into this world to punish him. He was just saying weird stuff. And he wrote a lot of things that I cannot talk about. But pretty much his whole life and things that I was not aware of. But he was writing on journaling. Yeah, that's the word. He was journaling the things that were happening to him while he was there. And I cannot rest and just say my son's gone and that's it. I still haven't buried him. But I cannot. My heart, my mind does not allow me to just say he's gone and that's it. What about the things that happened? What about the calls that I made to 911? Why did the paramedics not call the judge like they always do when they have a patient that is mental and has overdose? There should have been a call to the judge to ask if she would approve for him to stay in a hospital against his will if he decided not to want to stay, because he was suicidal, because he overdosed, he was poisoned with drugs, because dosed, he was poisoned with drugs, because he had a mental illness. He had just gone out of that 6 months program. Now I really feel like I took my son to the slaughter. While all this years I was looking forward to him being there, thinking that they were gonna help him with his mental illness, that they were gonna detox him. I was hoping for a son that was at least detox, at least that. Even if he came back with permanent brain damage due to maybe substance abuse or trauma, whatever. But I wanted my son at least sober, to have time and the opportunity to take him to all his appointments, because he had 3 appointments per week for follow-up. But that I never got that opportunity. And it's so heartbreaking. And I just want to bring awareness to anyone that has a loved one in any rehab that is not, one that self-paid, or this was a government thing. I keep thinking about, taxpayers complaining about you spending all your money on drug addicts and stuff. You know what? They're the ones making the money. My son is not the first case. I've done a lot of research lately, and I came to find out, and you can research this yourself, that there's a high chance of people coming out of rehabs or jails, or or prisons, whatever, high risk of overdose. I did not know that you have to administer a Narcan more than once if need be. I did not know that. I did not know that they needed medical attention from a hospital. I did not know that. And this is where my guilt comes from, because I did not know that. But I'm praying for God to bring peace into my heart so I don't lose my mind. My hands sweat. Oh, my hands get cold, and my feet, my hair is beginning to fall. I'm mourning, and I'm not making this video so people can feel sorry for me. This is normal, and I'm gonna be okay. And I'm gonna be okay because I believe in God, because I pray, because God has blessed me with my family that I never thought they have come through for me. They're coming to visit me almost every day. They're bringing me food. They're bringing me the word of God. They're bringing me comfort, and and I'm praying that I'm strong, because I have other children to live for. But I do want to bring awareness. And I ask for prayers from anyone that's listening to me, because I did and was able to reach a news reporter. And she's thinking about, she's considering taking my case and bringing this to the light. So with all this being said, um, I spoke my heart, what I wanted to say. Like I said, my son passed away last Tuesday. Wednesday, July the 30th. We haven't buried him yet. I think it will be on the 15th. I wasn't ready for it. Burying a child, it costs money. Um, I don't want to discuss religion, but I do want to discuss my conviction, and my conviction is not to cremate him. It is my conviction. If you want to say religious conviction, it is. I don't judge those who cremate, but I don't believe that, you know, it's my conviction. Uh, so it's taking a little while. I thank everyone who has supported, contributed to my son's GoFund. I'm not here for the GoFund right now. I'm just thanking y'all. But what I'm trying to say, it's very hard, and I feel that my son could have had an opportunity to be saved from that overdose if 911 paramedics had called the judge, if the hospital nurse staff had been more knowledgeable or more caring, because I don't know if they knew that he was dying, and if they did not, shame on them, because I told them. I told them he was gurgling. I told them he was purple in his lips. When they arrived, his oxygen was 20. So those are signs of death. Those are actually, if you Google, those are the last signs, minutes of someone being overdosed and they are actively dying. And it's not like I didn't inform them, I sure did. They haven't wanted to release the medical records yet. I will try tomorrow. I ask every believer that is listening to me to please join me in you know in this prayer, that I'm able to be connected with the right people to be able to bring justice for my son, for every person that's out there suffering mental illness and is treated like they don't deserve to live. I was there with my children crying over my son's dead body. Came home maybe like 5 in the morning. Very early in the morning, I got a call from them telling me that there was 2 people waiting for my son's organs. Wow, I would not mind my children or myself being organ donors, but it made me think, you were analyzing my son's organs, but you were not worried about saving my child. You guys were so fast in calling me to let me know that you had 2 persons waiting for my son's organs. You know, of course I would have loved it. I mean, my son's gone. Maybe I could say someone's living, a little piece of my son's life is living through somebody. If you could save a life, I'm totally up for it. But the way it went, it was so cruel. It was so harsh. And I can't get off my mind the images of my son on his last moments as I was crying out for help. I recorded it. I recorded the time that I'm in the 911 calls, the times, the duration of the calls. I recorded him while he was Gurgling is when you have fluid and you're choking because, your lungs are shutting down. I recorded all that, and I'm keeping it. I know it's so hard. I hate to see it. When I see it, I start to shake and sweat and all that, but I knew that I was going to need it because I knew that I was being ignored. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this video will inform someone who might need it one day, and I pray you don't. But just in case. God bless. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.